The reality is leadership is about how you serve others. So it really is about the team. That's not a cliche. It really is about the team, ultimately. I think the miss of leaders out there by position, maybe not by the way they act, is they tend to forget that. They think they need to do it all.
All right, we are back on the Long Run Labs podcast with Kevin Rutherford. Kevin, thanks for taking some time to chat.
Stoked to be here.
We're
Really
doing it
stoked.
live.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live.
How it doesn't get better than that. Come on.
The last time we did a live podcast was Austin, Texas.
Correct. Yeah, we were at the running event.
2023?
It's either 23 or 22. It might have been 22.
I wasn't in there in 22, so it must have been 23.
23. Okay.
All right, cool. All right, who is Kevin? What brings you what brings you into the seat today?
I just want to hang out with you. Let's be clear.
We just went to Scratch.
Yeah.
Scratch Labs table.
We
had
went
a delicious
to Scratch, formerly my competitor when I was CEO for Nuun Hydration. Now they're the frenemy, I guess, if you will. I think Scratch has done a great job. That was awesome, by the way. They did a really nice job on that cafe, which is no surprise. I remember when they did the food trucks. Remember the food trucks?
Food trucks are great. By the way, Ian's listening to this, so.
Oh, Ian. All those nasty things I said weren't true. Just kidding. The food trucks that they did, though, I thought were really magnificent. I actually did talk to Ian a little bit, and I talked to Alan about that one. Apparently, it was a tough model to kind of keep going, but that was so genius. They're doing some really cool stuff. What brings me to Boulder, I'm just doing some work on a new company I'm with. We actually have an activation with Costco this weekend. So there's a Costco here just outside Boulder that I'm at. And that's when I reached out to you and said, want to catch up?
And here we are. So Kevin, you're someone I've looked up to in the space and respected a lot in terms of the work that you've done, specifically around people and culture. And so I figure we can really dive into what it takes to run a company. Like I've done a bunch of podcasts and conversations around brand marketing and fundraising, and maybe we can talk about that too. But I think each person has a special sauce that they bring to a company, and I'm sure anyone that's ever worked with you would say that you are a great leader.
I don't know if anyone, but maybe a few would, and that's wonderful. The reality is leadership is about how you serve others. So it really is about the team. That's not a cliche. It really is about the team, ultimately. I think the miss of leaders out there by position, maybe not by the way they act, is they tend to forget that. They think they need to do it all. I should give maybe a little context to help here for your audience on a little my background, and that will lead to how we met. So my background, not as talented as you, but I've done a lot of sports, from hockey early on. Every Canadian wants to know they're Canadians. I should start there. And so I still play hockey, but endurance sports, I got into that, Ironman racing and marathons, et cetera. It's been a couple of years since I've done that, so I really want to get back into it. But my business journey has been all about consumer packaged goods. So I started off in Canada at the largest retailer, Loblaws. And then from there, I went to S.C. Johnson, a family company. And they...
Really nothing on Loblaws?
Loblaws is, if you don't know anything about Loblaws, I'll just say this. It's, that name sounds funny. It sounds like if you have a bunch of marbles in your mouth, you're trying to say blah, blahs. So Loblaws, but it's a great retailer, actually. It is a phenomenal retailer. You know what? I will say this. I'm so glad I started my career at retail, because that foundation helped me all the way to this day. Like, I understand what the buyers of retailers are thinking on the other side of the desk because I was in that spot. So it's almost very natural for me on how do I speak to them? How do I work with our sales team to connect with them? So that's really actually paid dividends. So I will say that's a benefit. Selfishly, Loblaws, awesome retailer. If you're up north of the border, they are Walmart in scale and size to Canada as to what Walmart is to the US. Of course, they're not nearly as big as Walmart, to be super clear. I understand that. But it's usually their banners are a little more upscale grocery stores. Really, really good stuff. They were the pioneers of private label. Oh yeah, here's another little unknown fact. So now we're getting on Loblaws. Check this out. Loblaws was so good at private label, so good. Walmart hired Loblaws to develop their private label back in the 80s, I believe it is. They hired Loblaws to develop their private label. In return, Walmart agreed not to bring their superstores to Canada until like, I don't know, 2005 or something like many years later.
Wow.
Now that's obviously expired and here we are, but they were that good at it. And so they actually helped develop the private label for Walmart.
Huh.
Didn't know I was going to go there, but I did. SC Johnson is a privately held company. I think it's on the 5th generation. As I reflect back at SC Johnson, so it's a cleaning company, Windex, Ziploc, Glade, Drano, all kinds of different products that many people know in their household. But selfishly, I will say, I am so grateful for SC Johnson because they invest a lot in people, in training, how to work together. So early in my career, I was learning these fundamentals on being a leader, and what that means for culture, team building, but also strategy and vision. So it's kind of like a mini P&G. That's kind of the way I would describe it. Phenomenal experience. They moved me to the US, did that for a few years, and then I realized I need to get out of cleaners. Like I need to do something different. And I wanted to follow my passion around health, wellness, sports, and I'm hesitating because I'm like, yeah, that next move doesn't really fit this because I went to beer.
Yeah, but that's what you get at the end of the event.
What's that?
That's what you get at the end of the event.
That's true. And in fact, actually, here's something you probably don't know, but it was our team that started the trend of beer at the end of races. Wow. Yep. True story. It's called something else now, but so I was on Miller Genuine Draft, and our Miller Genuine Draft Light product was basically dead. Like it was a great beer, but like volume-wise, it was nothing. And my teammate, Allison Fowler, who I'm still really good friends with, she was leading Miller Genuine Draft Light for us on a whole relaunch called MGD 64. So there's a Miller 64 that exists right now. So basically, it was kind of looking at Michelob Ultra.
Yep.
And that wasn't at the end of the course back then. It quickly followed us. So we started a whole trend on run. And we said, let's have a beer at the end of the course and let's also target women. And so Allison created this whole thing around the lightest beer in the market. And it worked. The downside of going the lightest beer in the market based on calories, it's kind of like saying, hey, I've got a new program for you. It's the 8-minute abs. And you know who's going to take you out next as your competitor? The one that does the 7-minute abs and then the 6-minute abs and the 5-minute abs. So MGD 64, we knew we only had so much runway. Right. So if it was successful, which it was, someone was going to come out with a lower one. And sure enough, that's what happened. I think there was a Bud Light 60 or 59. I don't even remember. I have to admit that's a while ago now. But you're right. It did start with that. But the reason I did go to beer was actually to touch on sports marketing. And I did get the opportunity to do that, which was really cool. I also learned, although I love sports, I really love participation, sports and participating and being in the mix. I left there and I went to become CEO for the first time. Actually, that's not true. I went to Kashi down in San Diego first. That changed the way I looked at business. So the Simon Sinek talk, the why talk that many people have seen, I think it's like 4th most watched TED talk of all time. It didn't exist when I was at Kashi. It was actually when I saw that Simon talk, I'm like, oh my God, that's us. That's what we do. So we led with purpose and why. And I will say that combined with my previous experience was building a playbook that I had no idea I was building in my head, of how to lead a team as a CEO. Again, that actually wasn't even my aspiration. That was just I was fortunate. And so Kashi really is about putting values, how we behave, vision, purpose, like ingrained in what we did. So that was incredible life experience. Plus I learned how to surf. I was living in San Diego, so that's cool. Canadian living in San Diego. Come on. Working in La Jolla. Oh yeah, that was a good part of the career tenure. From there, then I moved back to a frozen tundra and did cleaning again. I became the CEO for Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day, so natural soaps, cleaners, detergents. I took over for the founder, Monica Nassif, after SC Johnson, a family company, had acquired it.
Did you have anything to do with that?
So I didn't have anything to do with the acquisition. I came in post-acquisition, and then they had me basically interview, and they wanted to consider me as a candidate based on my background. They liked that I knew S.C. Johnson. They liked that I'd done the scaling at Miller, and they liked that Kashi at the time was considered one of the better acquisitions of all time. Kellogg had acquired Kashi, so I kind of knew a little bit of how to do that. So I was probably a good fit for what they needed at that moment. So yeah, I didn't have anything to do with the acquisition during, but I did post, obviously, because I took it over. Monica Nassif, founder, brilliant woman. Here's a little unknown thing that most people don't realize. Mrs. Myers is actually themed after Thelma Meyer, which is Monica's mom. And Thelma had 9 kids. I think it's 9 kids. Sorry, Thelma, if I got that wrong. She has the same birthday as me, by the way. So Thelma had 9 kids, and she was so pragmatic about how she used resources at home in her home in Iowa that she would like have spaghetti and she'd save the water to then use on plants and different things as well. So Mrs. Myers comes from this roots of like from the garden and from home. Great experience, amazing. We were named a top company to work for by Outside Magazine on my 3rd year there. And we had like that was actually the thing I'm most proud of. You'll see that it's a common theme. I'm just super proud of the team stuff. But we also had really good success on the business front. That tenure didn't last as long as I thought it was going to be. That went a few years, and they wanted to make a change, and they needed a different type of leader. Did I agree with it at the time? No. Do I think it was the right call now? Yeah, maybe. So I left after a few years, tried to figure out what do I want to do next. Did some consulting, worked with some really cool brands, one in particular, Vega. Do you know Vega?
Yeah. Brendan.
Yeah, Brendan Brazier. Yeah, got to know Brendan really well. Charles Chang, got to know him really well. Wonderful team. And then Nuun happened, and I became the CEO for Nuun. And that was a really interesting thing behind the scenes. By the way, you never know when stuff's going to happen, because I had 2 offers in hand that were in SoCal, actually. And I got approached by somebody to be the CEO for Nuun. Would I consider it? And I said, I've got 2 offers in hand. I think it sounds awesome, but I don't think I'm your guy. It's too late. Like I'm already down the final. They go, give us 1 week. And so I met with every single board member. I met with all the Nuun team, and then they gave me an offer, and I'm like, you guys win. I want to go here. And I got to follow my passion, which we talked about earlier today, you and I, when we were at lunch, is I miss the endurance space, and being immersed in that, I got to do it. So Nuun did that for almost a decade, and that was incredible. That was an incredible run, pun kind of intended, maybe. And we sold to Nestle, Nestle Health Science specifically.
For $250 million, something like that.
Your numbers are roughly right. Correct. So that was a good run. I still stay in touch with the Nuun team, whoever's left. There's not a lot left. And I do stay in touch with the Nestle Health Science team a little bit. I try to, because I just have so much passion for the brand, but we'll see where it goes. You may have heard news, but it looks like they'll probably be looking at selling that off and a few other supplement brands because, they're shifting their focus, which is totally understandable. And then today so after I tried to figure out who I am again, I'm not sure if I figured that out, but I now have taken the CEO role for Tosi. And it's basically a really healthy, clean snack brand, like nuts and seeds in a bar, almost like a kettle corn that's nutrient dense. We have that product. It's a wonderful family that started it, and they asked me to come in and take the CEO role and help lead them to the next level. And we'll see if I can do that. So it's early on, but I'm excited about what we're doing.
That was a phenomenal intro.
I don't know if it was phenomenal, but I realized, man, I guess I should probably ground the audience on who I am because I haven't been in this space for a while. So.
Yeah. Well, I think many of the people listening to this will be familiar with Nuun. And if they're not familiar with Nuun, they're familiar with the playbooks that Nuun created, right?
Totally.
We first connected probably 2013 or so.
Yeah.
2012 even.
Probably maybe more 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was at Energy Bits at the time, building a brand ambassador program for people who were interested in spirulina and chloral algae. But
with a Canadian.
And that company is still around somehow.
Catherine, right?
Catherine, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what was really novel at the time was the concept of a brand ambassador program. And so it was cool to see kind of those two companies pave the way for we're now 12, 13 years later, like this is now a very formal and structured piece of most businesses in the outdoor space, let alone non-endemics, outside of the outdoor category.
True.
I want to go back to the passion piece, and then we'll jump back to the business side. So when did outdoor adventuring and activities enter your life?
Me?
Separate from the hockey stuff, because that's in the blood.
That's in the blood. You're right. We're born with skates on. Actually, pretty early age. Like when I say early age, the fourth grade. Here's something interesting that I wish more schools would replicate. So I grew up in the capital of Canada, Ottawa, in the suburbs. And the reason I'm bringing that up is there's this little elementary school called Bell's Corners Public School. And every day, it was mandatory that your class, so it would be rotating throughout the day, everyone had to run or walk. Some kids didn't want to run. 20 minutes every day, every single day. Wow. And then there's also phys ed gym class. And so I got hooked on running then. And then I joined the cross country team. And then I was on the track team. So it kind of got in my blood really, really young. To me, it's fascinating because I think because I started at such a young age, and my parents never pushed me, I just wanted to do it and just kept on going. I think running just comes so naturally to me because of that too. Like, just even my heart rate is oddly enough crazy low.
That's a Canadian conversion though, right?
Yeah, you're right. That was metric. Well played. But I do think there's something to do with that. But it was a really early age. It was kind of by accident. And then I just continued to do like cross country and track throughout, elementary and, early school.
And you got into triathlon, you got into long distance running. What did that evolution look like?
Yeah, so triathlon was, I mentioned Allison Fowler earlier, who worked with me on Miller Genuine Draft. Well, that MGD 64 also sponsored a triathlon. That's actually when I first got into triathlons, because I could barely swim. In fact, I was afraid of the water when I was a kid. And Allison has a sponsor, the Chicago Lifetime Triathlon. So it's a big deal. And she's like, "Do you want to do it?" I'm like, "I can't swim." And she goes, "Come on." And I'm like, "Okay." I was horrible. Like I backstroked the entire thing, could barely get through that. But that is actually where it started. And I have this thing about if I fear something, am I willing to give it a try and see if I can get over it? So interestingly enough, I'm still afraid of the water today, yet I have done many triathlons, including Ironman and half Ironman distances. And every single time, I'm freaked out in my head, and no one knows it, but I'm freaked out. You know what I listen to while everyone else is trying to get pumped up? I've got headphones on because I go hand it to my wife. I'm listening to Bob Marley, right? And I'm basically, everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. And I'm literally just trying to keep myself like just calm. Don't freak out. And I seem to somehow manage each time.
Amazing. So many people who love running and triathlon love the idea of working in sport. When did that come into play? When did you decide you wanted to be in the space? And did you have any fear that it would turn this passion, this hobby that you have, into something that you didn't enjoy?
I never had that fear. I've heard that, right? I have a hobby, don't work in it.
Yep.
I never had the fear. I don't personally agree with that. If you can be fortunate enough to do it, I think you live what you're doing and you can have work-life integration. That is the best place. And beer really was.
Work-life integration. I love that. Instead of balance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How do you integrate it? So, and we're so connected, right? Like think about our phones and technology today. If we try to separate that, I think we're kind of losing something. So how do you make it more integrated? That doesn't mean it needs to be a sweatshop and you're always working, but if you can somehow integrate it, I think you can do it. And truthfully, sports was the reason I went to beer. It was an opportunity that I had, and I was trying to get close to it. So I was trying to pursue it, but you don't always get the chance, right? There is something about follow your passion, and I'm not sure I'm saying that though right now. So I didn't have that fear. If you're fortunate enough to follow your passion and you get the opportunity, that's amazing. But I still think you could be passionate about what you're really good at, like working on cleaners, like I did for many years. Let me tell you, when I was in university and someone said, you are going to be leading the Drano brand, do you think I'd be like, heck yeah, I'm fired up for this? And the truth is, though, if anyone that knows me when I was working on Drano, I loved it. I was all about it. Like, I was all about it. And I loved it. I loved what I learned. I loved what we were doing. And it was really cool. Would I do that today? Well, I'm in a position where I can follow my passion a little more. So I'm a little more fortunate at this stage of my life. So no, I wouldn't do it because I don't want to do that. I think I can go on a different path. So yeah, long story short, I did pursue it. No, I don't think you should hold yourself back because it's a hobby. I really don't. I don't think that's good advice.
So you find yourself at Nuun.
Mm-hmm.
What does day one look like? How do you enter a company as CEO?
I have a really funny story, sort of funny.
We'll be the judge of that.
Yeah, you know what? Not funny. Just, wow, I can't believe that's how your first day went. So I come into the office the first day at Nuun. And so it's a big open room.
Yep.
And then there's all these desks around the perimeter. And then there's this one offshoot part of the big room, because you've been there.
Yeah.
Right? There's one offshoot where there was actually windows to the outside. Everything else, there was no windows to the outside.
The only thing I remember about the Nuun office is the big open space.
Yeah.
And I took a photo at Nuun in Nuun.
Oh, you did? Yeah, that's awesome. It was a wonderful space. So, but remember, I'm coming in, and so all the desks are around the perimeter, and then there was these two desks over by the window, which is near the kitchen. The point here that everyone needs to take away is there wasn't a lot of natural daylight in that room. It was fun. There was lots of bibs of races and bikes everywhere, but it didn't have natural light except for one spot. I walk over, and so the team goes, Kevin, here's your seat. This is literally, you asked how I started. This is day one, morning one, minute one. Like, here's your seat. I go, this is my seat. So I'm basically sitting by the window. And I'm like, really? And I see a desk in the middle of the space up against like a pole cylinder. There was like two desks there, but no one sat there because we were still a small team. So the desks were just basically sitting there empty. I would go, who's sitting there? They're like, nobody. And so I said, can I sit there? And they're like, well, you're the CEO. You can sit wherever you want. And I go, okay, I'll take that seat. They're like, really? But in hindsight, that actually wasn't done intentionally to send a message of like that. I was saying, though, that space should be someone that's working behind the computer all day long. And I'm in meetings all the time. That doesn't make sense. And then two, though, it sent a message right away of I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve you. And by the way, in return, they're all to serve each other as well, including me. Like, that's what we're here to do. That was day one, the message physically that I was sending. Some of it intentional, some of it not realizing, wow, that actually was a bigger impact than I thought. You wanted literally day one, so I told you.
Yeah. No, this is like exactly what I was digging for. What was the response to that?
Yeah. So
was there one?
Yeah, I will say this is, so my self-proclaimed title is the Chief Eternal Optimist.
Right, which I loved.
And I did that way back at Mrs. Myers. So it was my first CEO gig because I didn't want it to feel corporate. That was the intention. So I was trying to come up with something. And so I came up with that. Now I have that at Nuun, and then I do it as well at Tosi. I just keep the same title. So I give that context because what tended to happen, I don't think everything's positive, but I've got good energy, and I expect and push people to have good energy, have energy to push things forward. And I would say it takes maybe 30 days or 45 days for a team to really start to go, is this guy for real? Like, that's I can hear it without actually hearing. I can feel it. I can see it. I can sense it.
Why is that conversation happening?
I think they don't believe that a leader can trust them, genuinely think they matter, because that's what leaders fail to do. Most do, not all. Most fail to really help people feel seen and feel like they matter. And I'm doing that one person after another in a group setting, singles, boom, boom, just constantly. And that's why, is this guy for real? Until it's like when the going gets tough or something happens, they go, damn.
He is like that.
He is. This is him. Holy crap.
Why is it so rare that like we don't expect that, right? So I was telling you earlier about the conversation I had with Alex Mather, the CEO of Eternal, who in our first conversation was saying things about investing in people that most people wouldn't do or consider, and he did, and people love working for him. And I was like taken aback by the sincere, I don't even know how to describe it because it felt so abnormal. Why does that feel so abnormal? And we see examples like the way that you've led, and it leads to outcomes that we're looking for, whether it's business outcome, work-life satisfaction, whatnot. So like it works. Why is it so rare?
Well, I think first and foremost, the leader of the organization or the leadership is thinking about a lot of the financial health of the company. I think that, and they should. I do as well.
How would you define the role of a leader or a CEO? Well, maybe we'll start there and then back into what you're saying here.
Yeah, you know what? I think the CEO in many cases, once the team gets, or once the business gets a little bit traction, is you need to be the expert of nothing, but the knower of all. And so meaning you need to know enough to ask the right questions to move things forward, and then to get the most out of is a bad saying, but get the most out of the team, like so they can accomplish what their potential is, right? And the collective group. I think the CEO is also, their role is to help manifest and create an ecosystem, because that's what culture is, where the people can thrive and therefore the business outcome will happen. So that starts with belief, right? A la Ted Lasso, but it really is about that. Oddly enough, Ted Lasso stole my belief thing, by the way. Like I literally did I did keynote talks with belief as the core. The walk-up song for mine is Don't Stop Believing Journey. And then Ted Lasso comes out and steals it. But it does start with that, all kidding aside. So I love Ted Lasso. But it does start with that. And then it's making sure people, so that's on the CEO for sure, or the leadership team collectively. What is that vision? What's the future state of the world? Get people to believe in that. And you got to keep working at it. Then I think it's from there, it's like, how do you go and help people feel like they matter and create a sense of belonging, and all leading to the belief and the overall vision as to where you're trying to go. And that is on the CEO. I also think you'll hear this a lot is let culture build organically. I won't swear, I'll just say, well, I'll call BS on that.
Yeah.
I'll call BS on that.
Meaning you have to be extremely intentional.
Very intentional. Heck yeah. We're all humans. I have all of the roller coaster of emotions like every other human, like every other leader that's out there. And you need to like understand how to manage the highs and lows so you can be intentional of thinking of the impact you have on others. But that could go for any one of us. When you're really frustrated, how do you want to act? So you need to be intentional, and then you need to set what are the values, what are the behaviors we're going to have as a team. Then ultimately it's that organisms all around of the ecosystem that will make it stronger or weaker. And then so I need to be constantly on top of that. So I'm obsessed with culture. By the way, I'm going to come back to one of the things though, if we could, on that is, why don't they do it? So that was when I started with the financial piece. So you said, let's start with what the CEO does. That's what the CEO does, right? So collect the vision and then get people to believe in it and create a sense of belonging so everything moves forward on that. That's ultimately to me what the CEO does. And so why they don't do it, I think we're looking at people the wrong way, because we must, and understandably so, manage the business financially, pragmatically in the right way. We start to think of people as a cost center and as widgets. Not literally, but figuratively. I don't think anyone literally is thinking that, but I don't think. But
in some instances, probably.
Maybe in some. A little bit of, right, Bill Belichick, just do your job.
Yep.
Right? And that can work to a point, and then until it doesn't.
Right.
Right.
Winning kind of helps with that.
What does?
Winning
Winning does help. You're right. And if they won a lot. And now, was it Bill Belichick or was it Tom Brady?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's probably a bit of both. You're
Yeah.
right. In fairness to both of them. So I think winning does help with that.
But it can mask at the same time.
It can. You know, speaking of winning, I came on to several businesses as a marketing lead, which was kind of like being a GM in many ways and setting me up to be fortunate to be CEO. And I came on to several businesses that were not doing well. Like they were turnaround opportunities. When I went on to MGD, I was on a previous assignment with that. I remember my peer saying, Kevin, what the fuck? So that's what they said, just to be clear. Sorry for swearing, folks, but Kevin, what the fuck are you doing? Right? Like, this is a career killer. I'm like, I don't know. It sounds kind of interesting. Because it was in a business that was over 15 years in double-digit decline. Over 15 years in double-digit decline.
Wow.
And to turn it around seemed like basically there's no hope. It's done, right? It's had its heyday way back in late 80s, early 90s, whatever it was, the timing. And we did turn it around. That MGD 64 was one. We also did another thing that it worked as well. So we got a little luck on our side. But you can create wins on a team at any given time. Also, sorry, I'm ranting here, but I told you culture is a living ecosystem. There are micro cultures within your culture, and that's okay. So when things weren't going well, when I was in the big corporate world, why was it our team was doing really well? And it's because we developed our own team cohesiveness and culture within it. The analogy, if we want to use football as an example that I think of, won't use hockey to confuse everyone, but you could do it in any sport, honestly. So football, there's an offense and there's a defense. They're all in the same team. So there's one team culture, but the offense has a different culture than the defense. The offensive line has a different cohesiveness than the rest of the offense, right? They're like so tight.
Sales, marketing, product, go-to-market, finance.
And that's okay, as long as you know we're ultimately on the same team to win. And so as marketing, we're here to serve sales. Sales, we're here to serve marketing or ops, et cetera, because you can't win without the integration of all of it.
I want to make a note on the sales and marketing dynamic and talk about that later.
It's always a challenge.
Relates to culture.
Always a challenge. Yeah. Well, I think that's basically where I was going on that one.
Great.
I think the mistake is we think of it as people are widgets or a cost center. But what if you thought of it as an asset? The conversation I'm having with the team right now is, team, get all over AI, get all over these technical tools so you can be even stronger and liberate yourself to do even more. My intent is not to get rid of anybody. Let's go. Let's expand our capability. Let's learn. Let's grow. So
I love that. I love AI. It's really helpful in making us more efficient. Although it creates a lot of slop with outbound emails and just tons of messaging everywhere on the internet these days.
Also true.
Okay, I want to talk about the tension around sales and marketing, right? So my experience in the past has always been sales wants marketing to do more. Marketing wants sales to do more. Both need each other, and both are often confused as to why the other one is not serving the other team, right? And how do we get to a place where, right, like there should be a healthy amount of friction between sales and marketing, in my understanding, but it shouldn't be tension. It should be amicable versus tough, right? So talk me through your experience in the dichotomy and dynamic between sales and marketing, and how to foster a healthy amount of friction.
Yeah. What you have experienced is the norm in virtually all businesses.
Okay, good.
Sales and marketing will have tension. The reason, it depends on the business, but the reason fundamentally comes down to sales folks are hunters. I should, as the plant-based eater, find a different analogy, but I'll just use hunters, meaning they're always looking for something new, right? And so they're constantly hunting for more. And that's their job. That's great. They also get a cycle times of feedback loop that get really quickly of like, boom, win, loss, right? Did the buyer say yes or no, or whoever you're pitching to? And so that's what they're expecting. Then the sales team tends to, I did my job, over to you. Both are difficult. They're very, very different. They're both difficult. It's not as easy as I think salespeople think. Is like, pick up the awareness. Just build the awareness. It's got to have more meaning than that. It's got to stick. And that is really not easy. Like, that's hard. And it's a cluttered environment out there. So sales teams have to understand that. And so you're right, you have to work in tandem. So the more you can collaborate and find ways to work together on marketing within a sales world, I think the better off you are. So you really have to push teams to work together and have them start to learn the other side. By the way, marketers, on the other hand, marketers can be a little more egotistical. And what I mean by that is marketers are usually the strategists. And so they are like, this is what we're going to do. This is the roadmap. Now just go sell it, right? Because the sales team is usually the commercialization of the strategy. And I think that creates a tension because there's a little bit of, I might know better than you, but that's actually not true. It's a little bit like, here's the sophisticated Harvard MBA, but here's the trade school person, but you can't survive without the trade school person doing all this work. And it's just as valuable, maybe more valuable in many cases. But if you can get the right, using Harvard as, best in class school as an example of, here's the approach of what we're going to do, boy, that sure could make everyone more efficient because we're really focused. So there really isn't a respect, but I think that respect gets lost in the day-to-day, and that tension happens because of the sense of urgency, because of the desire for results, and a way to get there is so different. And I do think marketing cycle times of feedback, although in a digital world it's quicker now, but it's not as exact. Where sales, it's a little more binary.
It's yes, no.
I'm in or not.
Yeah.
Or hold, I'll know in a week, right? And then it's yes, no.
How does customer experience and customer service and product fit into this, while also acknowledging the fact that sales gets paid the most in the organization most of the time, or
not
that
necessarily.
Can be true. Not necessarily, but
yeah,
can often be true.
True.
Depending on what is being sold, as well as just incentives being either aligned or misaligned, whether it's like the KPIs of the product team versus the KPIs of the marketing team versus the KPIs of the sales team. Those might all be different, or should they be similar? Should there be shared KPIs? How do you think about aligning those different teams all towards the same mission to work in tandem? Or do you?
You need shared, in my mind, you need shared KPIs. You also need individual KPIs as well. So you have your personal accountability to something. What do you own, air quote, on that? Yeah. The shared KPIs, this is where the leadership team and then where the CEO needs to come into play. And the CEO is also about bringing people together, helping people understand the challenges and headwinds on both sides.
Should each person know the other team's KPIs?
Yeah, I think yes. I think full transparency on that would be ideal.
Because most people know sales KPI, which is sales numbers.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I often didn't know product, or I've heard that people don't know marketing KPIs, or, all sorts of different things. And so it's hard to know, right? So I think about it as, when I do partnerships with brands, I ask, what are we being evaluated on? What are you being evaluated on? How do I make you look good to your boss? How do I help you win? And so I'm sitting here asking that question to brands that I work with, so that I can structure a successful partnership. But I haven't seen that inside of a brand.
They should have it. They should be saying, here's the key metrics that we're going after on the marketing piece, so that the rest of the organization has visibility to understanding their role and also the challenges they're going through. Sometimes I think
and should that be like, is best practice to remind or do check-ins on that? Because like at times in my career, I have been informed of marketing KPIs or sales KPIs or whatnot, but it's, in my experience, been less of a
formalized.
Yeah,
it should be more, you want to get to a formalized scoreboard, right? Like, you can't win staring at the scoreboard. Right. We're losing, it's halftime, and you're staring at the scoreboard. Right. That's not going to do anything. Now you get to what am I going to do about it? But we should see the scoreboard, the KPIs, for the organization, anything sales specific. You don't have to go to all the depth on that one. But generally speaking, what are the key metrics from sales? What are the key metrics for marketing? What are the key metrics from operations? Finance is usually total company, but operations could be like fulfill rate and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, are we delivering customer service, et cetera? You need that scoreboard. And I think it's important for the rest of the team to understand why those are the metrics. So as an example, let's use this. So we're doing our podcast and one of the, this episode right now, and we're going to have whatever X number of downloads, 1 million downloads.
Yep.
Sweet.
From your words to God's ears.
So 1 million downloads. Did it build my brand? Well, it turns out when I dig in that, they were tuning in because they saw one soundbite and they were trying to get to something, and maybe it didn't really build the brand. They just really liked that clip. My point being is, sometimes the marketing KPIs can feel a little squishy. It's like, we said we were going to build our audience to this, or we were going to get an open click rate to this. And then if you're now so what does that mean? Did it grow our business? Like, I don't know. I think it's important, the education. I will tell you, one of the things that's really worked for me at Nuun, we did this all the time. Jerry, our CFO, was so good at this. We would do a scoreboard every month, town hall. People would see what's going on high level, what's happening across the organization, which would include marketing, which would include ops, sales, et cetera. We would constantly teach and coach everyone. What does this mean? So what does this mean? Because just having a scoreboard for scoreboard's sake really doesn't do anything. So what action is it going to drive? And the thing that we need to do is we need to constantly coach and teach to elevate people's game. I had a piece of advice from Tom Long, the CEO of Miller. Miller's coming up a lot today. Wow.
You should be drinking Miller Lite here.
I didn't expect that to happen, by the way. I almost rarely
my beer of choice in college.
There we go. So Tom Long says, we were doing this tour with this leadership team around the U.S., presenting, plans, and we were talking about these on town halls before anyway. I'm like, Tom, we're saying the same thing over and over again. And he's like, Kevin, we need to always be campaigning to keep people on message. My takeaway on that one is, he's not wrong, actually, of making sure we stay focused on the key priorities. But I also think what we did well, that was another level, is, so what does this mean? So what does this mean? And so by doing that, other people started emulating that behavior. So again, transparency in the results, alignment on the results. I understand why you're doing it. If you have a question, ask. If you want to question it, ask. But at the same time, you're going to hear it, and we're going to keep educating. Why does this matter? Ronnie,
the CEO of Insight Tracker, would joke that his job was Chief Repetition Officer.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Same idea. Yeah. It's true, though, because there's so many things coming at us, and we chase the shiny new toy. You and I were talking earlier today about Costco. And if you think about Costco...
By the way, we love Costco.
Of course. The model, at least outwardly to everybody, is as simple as it gets. And it's the same thing it was when it launched 50-ish years ago. I think it's around 50 years old.
It's older than that.
It's older than 50?
Yeah. It's like the 1930s, I think, in New York. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Did I miss that one? Sorry about that, Costco. Hopefully you're not listening to this.
Hopefully you are. And let's dance, Costco.
That is really fascinating to me, though, is Costco has barely changed. Same thing, drop a pallet, same limited number of SKUs. The size of the buildings are virtually the same. How they manage cash, as we talked about, is virtually the same. It doesn't mean they don't evolve at all. In fact, they're really known to treat their employees really well, which is awesome, which means you have to constantly evolve there too. But yeah, I think we chase shiny new toys. What's innovation? What's new? What are we doing now? What are we doing now? Have we really maximized with what we've got? Have we got the fundamentals still going strong?
I want to go back to the prior point and talk about accountability around the scoreboard and the measurement for each team. Let's say someone's listening to this and they're not the CEO and they're not a VP, but they're an employee at a brand that's not doing this visibility into goals and alignment. How does somebody who's not an executive suggest that something like this, or can someone who's not an executive suggest that something like this get implemented out of curiosity, as well as like, I just want to know what's going on with the product team, or I just want to know what marketing is getting, their bonus for.
Yeah.
And like, how do we help them win, kind of thing? Like, is there an opportunity for a non-executive to implement or even suggest such a structure or strategy?
I think in most cases, obviously not all, the answer is yes. I've been reflecting a lot on what got me here to this moment, what worked, what didn't work. And one of
an airplane and a car.
Yes, from Seattle to Denver and then driving to Boulder. But what got me here in life, on my career and my life journey and career journey. And one of the things that I really realized when I look back in my career at big corporate America, if you will, Kashi being part of Kellogg, there was the Miller one that we talked about. S.C. Johnson is a big privately held company. I wasn't the smartest person in the room, but I wasn't, maybe that was part of, because I wasn't the smartest person, I was actually speaking up. I would speak up to say, what is going on here? Or what do we think we can do differently? And challenging it, not to be a jerk, all with the intention to move it forward. And it was used with open arms. I do think it's how you do it. I think one of the mistakes is people sometimes ask questions to prove a point that I just shot a hole in this, right?
Right.
And that's a mistake, because now you've got your backup, whoever's there. But if you go in with good intentions and make sure that's clear, I believe almost all organizational leaders are going to be open to that question. If they're not, they got bigger issues.
Leading with curiosity.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you should always be open. I can't imagine someone not being open to it.
Yeah. Versus like it's not a gotcha. It's a how can we be better?
True. There's also, don't build presentations, recommendations based on what you think they want to hear, the management. That's the other big mistake I see happen. And again, maybe it was because I wasn't that bright, but I didn't do that. I built decks, presentations, trying to understand where they're coming from, but I didn't do it to tell them what they wanted to hear. I truly, throughout my career, would just, I think, for the most part, go, here's what I think, and here's why, here's my rationale. Now let's debate. And it worked. And it sounds so obvious, but most people build it to what they think their
satisfy
audiences
somebody
want.
else.
Yeah. And they don't even know they're doing it half the time. I was in a conversation with a Nuun employee. They were asking me, they were struggling with something with, presenting to the Nestle team. And I said to them, I go, do you hear yourself right now? I go, you sound so corporate. And I did that on purpose to try to like poke at them. And then they just started laughing. And I go, but no, seriously, like, do you think Abigail, the CEO, wants you to tell her what she just wants to hear? Or do you want to go and say, I know this is where you're at and what you're thinking. I have a different recommendation. I believe we should do this. Here's why. Here's what's going on. And have the courage to do that. Of course, they agreed, and I assume that's what they ended up doing, and whatever their recommendation was. I think you can get caught up in it. You're surrounded with people that are worried that probably they don't have psychological safety. The environment hasn't set it up. And so they're worried about what's going to happen to them. But if you take away that worry, you're actually going to perform so much better. It's like anything.
Yeah, these high performing teams are teams where making mistakes is okay, right?
Right.
So how do you enable people to take risks and make mistakes in the spirit of forward progress or learning faster, failing faster?
Have you heard of the concept of situational leadership? Like truly, like there's a concept, right? And there's 4 levels to that. And I'll just remind you or everyone else just how that looks. So it could be 4, it could be 8, but this model happens to have 4. And it basically goes, where are you on the task at hand? So you can be afraid to make mistakes. So if you've never done it before, I'm a development 1 level. I've never done this before. Well, I shouldn't say, Jonathan, why don't you just go do this and come back to me when you're done? Okay, I did not set you up for success. The leadership that I need to do is I need to be very hand-holding, Go try this, keep it in small bites, and keep coming back, right? Less risk because you haven't done it before. Now there's one, the second level is, I've done this a few times, but I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm getting better, but I just don't know enough. So the cycle time of information. The fourth level, if I skip one, goes, you've done this so many times, it's like, you know it better than me. So I'm just going to let you know when I'm done. And that's okay. And by the way, you may make a mistake is my point. But that level of where you are on the development does shift on where risk should be, to be clear. So it shouldn't be just carte blanche, go. The other clarification that we all need to think about is taking risks and it not working out is not wonderful, but it can be a good thing in the end. Taking risks and being sloppy and making mistakes, that's not good. And so those two get confused, right? Don't be sloppy. Make sure you're thinking it through. Do your homework. Follow through. Execute with the best precision that you can on whatever you're doing. And that is critical. It's kind of like training. My training for the day is this. Did I check the box or did I do it with intention as to what I wanted to do in training today? And if you do it with intention, then you did it right. If you just did it and showed up, you were kind of sloppy. And maybe you'll get injured. But that was sloppy. That was stupid. Why did you do that? You know that wasn't part of the plan.
I love this concept because I've, in my entire career, felt fully enabled to fail faster, or do things and make mistakes in the spirit of, will this work? Is this a better way? Will this land? Will it resonate? Is this a good way to reach people? And I feel very grateful that I've had the leaders above me personally enabling me to do those types of things. And I've had wins that resulted from that if I didn't feel enabled to take those leaps, I wouldn't have taken them. And then we wouldn't have had those wins.
I think you have a personality that, to me, is very entrepreneurial. And that comes with
but there's I crave that. I crave the mistake making, not mistake making, the ability to take risks.
The ability to take risks.
And prove a hypothesis.
So two words that are coming into my mind, because I think about you and, depending on the situation, and someone else that might be more risk adverse. So there is your competence and your confidence. Have you heard this kind of spectrum on that?
No.
So if your confidence is higher than what, relative speaking to what your
competence,
yeah, exactly. So your confidence exceeds it, that could be trouble.
Yeah.
That could be trouble because you're making really crazy mistakes because you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But there's also, but then let's say sometimes you're going to lean there because you're going to have, you're confident because you have a track record of doing well with your risks for the most part. And so that should keep building confidence. And you do, in fairness, knowing you do build your confidence, like you're always growing. That being said, it's probably out of kilter sometimes. It's probably a little bit here.
Yeah.
There are people that's going to have a confidence below their competence. That's also not a good thing. Because she or he needs to lean in. You're better than that. You should be more confident.
Right.
And so that's going to take some coaching for them to help get there. It's going to take some coaching to say, whoa, bring that little humbleness back down here. Here's why, the risk. But the same thing holds true. And we are human beings. We're individuals, and we all have that spectrum of different emotions and where that means. So confidence and competence, and where is it in equilibrium is the key, is in the right range. And that's probably a good self-check for all of us to do. And you, I would say, is probably leans to this, and you keep building that in harmony somewhat. And I think that's what's worked for you. I would love to see the people that have higher competence and bring that up. It's okay. Come on. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But
do you often see a gender bias with that one? Do men often over-index on confidence?
Yeah. I think men tend to lead with more confidence, and therefore sometimes are beyond their competence, and women the other way around. At the same time, I think women, maybe because of that, there's something in DNA of men and women.
Much better
They're actually
all
better
else equal.
leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Women tend to be, guys, careful, tend to be, it doesn't mean it has to be, but tend to be better leaders. And I think it's because they focus less on ego. Their focus, again, tend to. They focus less on ego. They focus on like, what's the job there? Think about women like nurturing in the home and like who's driving that. That transcends into how they think of work. It's like, we got to move this forward. It's very responsible. And then we tend to be a bit more risk takers. They both are, by the way, essential on teams. So, but to me, that's where it tends to go. And so if you're always a risk taking, that could be a dangerous spot as a leader.
Right.
That's why I think women can tend to be better leaders. They both have the competence when they focus, for sure.
Another question about leadership. So is Tosi a in-person only, virtual, hybrid?
It's actually, it's such a small company, but I would argue it's a quasi-remote. Here's why. We do have a warehouse and we have an office in Anaheim, California, where the founders, mother, daughter, Stephanie, Chelsea, started this company. And so there is a group of people there. I live in Seattle, so I commute back and forth, but so does our sales lead, lives in the Bay Area. So we just try to get together quarterly or a little more than that. But there is a team that's in Anaheim that's there every day. So that's why I'm like, it's kind of a quasi, but I guess to answer the question simply, more remote than not.
Was your entire time at Nuun in person?
Yes.
I'm curious your thoughts on remote versus in-person versus hybrid. I loved the in-person experience. And then once remote was introduced, I was like, I go into an office and I talk for hours.
Yeah.
And I like have to go in at 11 o'clock having already done a lot of my work for the day because I'm a social person and whatnot. So what are your thoughts on building remote versus hybrid versus in-person culture?
I do think there's an advantage of in-person, which is going to sound counterintuitive with me in Seattle and the teams in Anaheim. I do. I think.
But I'd agree with you. Yeah. Yeah.
I also think there is something about being in person, not just for the business, I think for development of people, especially people earlier in their careers. I think being in person is probably a really good thing. I'm not diminishing the challenges of commute time and all of that. Like, that's not fun. And so I'm with you. Now that I've done remote, it's really hard for me to give up that flexibility personally. It's really hard. But I do think the best way is to do it that way. Here's what I will say, though. Pre-pandemic, early on at Nuun, actually, half our team was in Seattle, in the headquarters, roughly. Half the team was field sales all around the U.S., and then a little bit in Canada as we started to grow. And I will say the sales team and field marketing team had very strong team cultures, and they were remote. And I think about this often. I'm like, how did our sales team do such a great job at that? And how did our field marketing team do such a great job at that? One, they had great leaders of the team, but they also had a team that had buy-in. And so one of the things that I adopted early on, this is like a funny story for you. Zoom is like, so, everyone knows what it is. And actually Zoom's probably not even the most popular thing anymore with video conferencing. True story. We had like no money at Nuun, and we were trying to find free video options because I was obsessed with not having a speaker in the middle of the table when we were having conference with everyone calling in town halls. I just hated that. And I knew video existed. It's back in 2013. I'm like, we got to do this. And so I'm like, I want this. And so Jeff Dean on our team was really good at technology, and he was trying to help find us a solution. So he finds us a solution. It was free. It was called Fuse, and it used to freeze and all. It was horrible. He did it. That wasn't his fault. The technology was really bad. Then he tried another one. Oh, Link by Microsoft came out. It doesn't even exist today. That was horrible. It was free. And then Jeff goes, Kevin, I don't know if we can do it. I'm like, we have to find a solution. We have to find a solution. And Jeff goes, and Jeff lives down in Santa Cruz, so near Silicon Valley. And he goes, have you heard of this thing called Zoom? I'm like, what the hell is Zoom? And he goes, it's technology. All the Silicon Valley kids are using it down here. And so we were really early adopter of it. So I do think video does help, which is not novel for us today, but it was novel back in 2013, 14, 15, 16. Like we were really weird to most people that visit our office. They'd see people on their computer talking to others. It was like really funny. So here's what I would say. There's there. But one of the things our sales team did really well, our field marketing team did really well, and I think any team on a remote can do is you must be intentional in how you get people together. And you can rally around different things. So Boulderthon would be this weekend. If Nuun was activating, we wouldn't just bring a few people to do Boulderthon. We would bring several people around it so more people were interacting with each other. We'd also execute better. We'd do hard things together. So we'd build trust and bonding and connection by doing hard things. But it was also a chance to just rally around something. And there are events happening on most businesses all the time. Even if it's a retail activation, fine, bring in a few more people and do that. I know it's an expense, but it's worth it because that happens. Because what you're trying to do is build this connection that leads to trust. Trust, right, leads to the sense of bonding, and then the bonding leads to a sense of belonging. And that is the key. And you're always feeding that up the ladder. And when you get a sense of belonging, and when I reflect on Nuun, and if I could distill it down to one thing that was Nuun was better than all of our competitors at, I think anyway, and at least how we scaled, it was all a sense of belonging and connection was our one thing. We were going to connect with everybody deeply. So you can do it, but you have to force it in person at some point. And it is harder. We have to be clear with that. It is harder to build team cohesiveness and culture in a remote environment. It can be done though.
How do you get introverts to buy in?
Well, I think introverts also have extrovert in them.
I asked this question for Mariah Bridges.
Oh, yeah. So Mariah is awesome. I would say this is introverts have extroverts in them. However, where they get their energy is going to be like getting alone time. So you need to think of ways to do that. Like I'm an extrovert. So I can constantly talk to people all day long and I'm not leaving at the end of the day exhausted. I'm good. Like, let's keep going. In fact, I'm probably exhausted if I was by myself and just only doing stuff by myself. I'm not in my best Kevin mode. So I think it's really about understanding each other and giving space where that is. And I think a lot of that is on extroverts to like give space. Stop, pause, quiet, let someone else talk and invite them in, give them a chance, give them a warning that you're going to invite them in is also a good way to do it. And introverts tend to have just incredible ideas and thoughts and perspective because they're introspective, thinking it through. So I don't know if that wasn't a very magical answer, but
it's prescriptive.
Yeah.
I think it'd be remiss to not talk about fundraising and acquisition. Mm-hmm. So you've gone through this a couple of times now.
Yep.
You've fundraised at different size companies, different stages in the process.
Yeah.
What's the 301 or 201 level explanation of what's essential for fundraising in today's environment?
Most people talk about the total addressable market, the TAM, things like that, because it's the size of the prize. I don't really think that is what's most important. It's part of your story because it shows, the blue sky thinking. What's most important is your proof of concept, the product market fit. Do you have proof that people truly want to buy this where you can be profitable? Even if you're not profitable, you can build a roadmap to that. And do you have proof points that can then repeat and scale? And that's ultimately what all the investors are going to dig into to understand. Is this a big idea? That's why they're looking at the TAM intuitively. But then they're going, do you have proof points? And that product market fit is key, no matter what. Selling to raising money and raising capital. One of the best lines I think I ever did when we sold Nuun to Nestle, and it sounds really bad, but it was truly, this is a legit moment that I think got Greg Bahar, the CEO at the time, Sean Bushhouse, president. They really loved this because there was no way I could fake it with any presentation. They would talk about, so what does this brand mean? You talk about your community and what that looks like. And I would do this. I did this on several occasions. I go, pull out your phone. And they're like, what? Yeah, pull up your phone. Do you have Instagram on your phone? Yes, pull up Instagram. In the search bar, I want you to type in pound, i.e. hashtag, and type in Nuun life.
You can't beat that level of engagement and community.
Correct. And I said, what you're seeing right there,
that's what you're buying.
Is what you're buying. That's what the brand means. And what you would see if you were to pull up the hashtag Nuun life is people pointing at their watch, not drinking it. Like there was a bit of drinking of Nuun, but it was usually pointing at their watch. I crossed the finish line. I did this. It was high five. It was hugs. It was all about more movement.
Yeah.
It was about get more heartbeats in. It was about exercise and movement because we weren't selling hydration. We were
a lifestyle.
Hydration was a tool to live your lifestyle, to get you to move more. And it was so powerful. I know it was powerful because I could see their reaction on the screen or in person. And every time that happened, and I did it every time because I knew it was going to work. I was just waiting for the moment to do it and make it feel like it was like off the cuff. But the truth is I didn't make up the hashtag was made up by us originally. And then it became,
it just worked. Yeah.
It was just something that became a life of its own. And, you know, hundreds of thousands of posts on this made up hashtag called Nuun life. That spoke to it. So my point is product market fit. You really need to prove that out. And then you do need to show financial viability that at least you have a roadmap to get there. Now things can change, things can go wrong, and you might be back at it raising money again. You do, you know, ultimately the saying of cash is king or cash is queen. It really is. You just can't function without it as a business. So you definitely need access to it. Now, if you can self-fund this, that's the best way to go. Most of us aren't in that position to do that. That's why you want a capital raise. And then as you move further along the track in your career journey, you're looking for not just the cash, you're looking for the intelligence on the other side to help you scale quicker so they can help you. And TSG was our private equity group, one of the largest PE firms in the consumer packaged goods, actually, and a lot in the fitness world too. They were phenomenal in terms of helping us. And then, of course, Nestle Health Science at the time was just, you know, really, honestly, a really good acquisition in terms of what they had, Vital Proteins, which they still do, Garden of Life. They just had the model that really made sense for us.
So what does that process look like? And if someone out there is building a business, how long should they expect a pre-seed or a seed round to take?
I think it depends on how much you're asking, how much your proof points are, like how valid that is. But I would say you need to plan for a 3 to 6 month on the, like when you're talking about the seed round. It could continue to linger even after that, but you hopefully are bringing in money within 3 to 6 months. You could go quicker. It's possible. Selling a company is usually more like a year, especially to a big company, a strategic, because there's so much due diligence behind the scenes of where they're digging in. But three to 6 months, I would say, on earlier round raise.
And how did that communication go with the team members around the sale of the company?
Well, it went well for a few reasons. So that's a really, really good question, by the way, because a lot of people asked me that back when we first sold. Now it's been a little while. I haven't had that question in a while. And I actually want to share also what not to do. So what we did well at Nuun, everyone at Nuun had options. So everyone was an owner in the company, if you will. So that was one. So now they're all part of it. Now, not everyone was walking away with a massive check. So the other thing we did right is we were very clear on that's not what's going to happen. It's going to be a great payday for all of us. But not everyone's walking away like I can retire
never working
now.
again.
Yeah, that's just not going to be it. And back to coaching and teaching. So I, with Jerry, and Jerry Moore, the lead, our CFO, would coach people and annually take them through what do the options look like? What does that mean if it were valued at this? Because it's actually valued, it's worth nothing unless it sells. Right. That's the other thing for people to remember. So it's nice, but it may never mean anything. It may never have a value to you, unfortunately. In our case, it did. And so we would coach, how do you come up with valuations? What does that mean? If the company were to sell for this, this is what it would look like, and this is what it would mean for you. And he would literally take through every single person.
You did that annually?
annually, take them back through. Do you want to have any questions? What's going on? Because we knew, we both, him and I knew that we didn't want disgruntled people when an acquisition happened. One, they weren't clear on what that could mean. And so they were clear. And so when it happened, it was like, awesome, yay. We also told them that we were not, this wasn't about selling out. It was about them buying in, and we're going to continue and continue to move forward as an kind of an independent company within the Nestle Health Science world. And that is how it started. That's actually not how it stayed. And there's many reasons for that. That isn't how it ended up, unfortunately, because I still like the old model. But a lot of things happened after they acquired Nuun, where they made a big acquisition. It changed a lot of the structure of Nestle Health Science. So they went to more of a matrix organization versus a holding company of companies. That's what we originally got acquired as. That was their business case with us too. It wasn't just us. That's their business case. They changed all their cases because it became a matrix model of shared organization across the different functions. But I would say, I think the vast majority of people thought it was fair. Like it wasn't completely unexpected. They knew this stuff was coming. You can't tell them everything during a lot of this, but we were very clear that we're on a roll. We're going to get bought at some point here, folks. This looks highly likely. But don't get distracted by that. Stay focused. Again, it's not a finish line, is actually what I would say. It's more like an aid station, right? Boom, get your hydration. Let's keep going. That was my goal. In fact, one story for you. I'll share this with you. The day we signed the deal with Nestle Health Science, and it was actually a virtual meeting, and I was on with our board, and there was a lot of like virtual high fives going on, and I was really quiet. And I said to Dan Nordstrom, asked me, he was the chairman of our board, and said, Kevin, why don't you leave us? You've been quiet. Why don't you leave us with a few, words before we depart? And I said, it's an awesome day. The reality is the team that actually made this happen actually isn't in the call, which is true. It's the team. They're all out working. And I go, I got to go. I got work to do. And I actually wasn't really joyful. It wasn't that Dan did anything wrong. I just wasn't joyful. I'm just like, I got work to do. I got a team to make sure that they're feeling good. And it's because they're going to get this news and they're not going to know it. Now I know this and I can't share that yet. But it's coming. Like within 24 hours, they're going to see it. And then we do an announcement right before it gets published. So timing was everything. But yeah, I still remember that. I actually wasn't very joyful it wasn't that I wasn't happy with the
Why
acquisition.
do you think so?
I was so focused on the team, and I just felt I wanted to make sure that
you had a job to do.
Yeah, I have a job to do. Like I just need to get back to work, like genuinely to the team. Was
there a moment of joy at some point?
Yeah, when the money hits the bank, that's a joy for sure. That there's no doubt. And I got to do, when Nestle went to a different model, I told them I didn't want to. I'm not your guy anymore. Like it's a different model now. So you tell me when, and then that's when I exited after like a year later. And I did get to do some travel. So that was some joy for sure. So my wife and I traveled in Europe for 3 months, which was amazing. Nice. So that was the joy, but that's kind of it. Like I know it's again cliche, but you're kind of winning the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup in CPG, and when you sell to a big company, like it is kind of like winning that. That's the way your peers are looking at it in some ways. And I will say it's like there's cool moments at the time, but then it's just like you're right back at it, and I don't know. It's not all that you thought it was going to be amazing for. It's not that it's bad. I'm just saying it's just I'm glad it happened, but it's really, I don't know. It's quick and fleeting.
You said you had advice of what not to do.
Oh, yes. So the what not to do is make sure you're transparent like we were, truly. Like that is the model to do. And the reason why we did that is we also heard from other companies when I think it doesn't matter what the companies were, but there were CPG companies based out of California. There was a few where it happened and people were really pissed off. Like, it was like, that's it? That's all I got? And they're they're really mad.
It's like $50K. It's not life-changing money, but it'll pay off your car loan.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, it could be more than that depending on the acquisition. But yeah, you're right. That's right. And so managing that was so key. And that's what I meant by when I said what we did. So what not to do is find a way to do that, because when you don't, you're going to have people mad. And by the way, you actually, when you sell a company, no matter what, there's still transition time. You're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. Like you're going to be there for at least 3 months, like at least, likely 6 months to a year. But it's going to be 3 months because there's a whole integration process. And that's going to be from hell if you've created disgruntled people everywhere. So you've got to think ahead. Don't think short-sighted about just the sale. That's the mistake I've heard many, many people do, and people are pissed off. I'm not saying they're right to be pissed off, but they are.
They have a right to.
Nature.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe it's like no one told you that you were going to get $1 million. You just started going through your head, seeing Silicon Valley tech people selling for all this, going, "Look at me."
Right.
But it's a CPG.
It's a very different world. Yeah. Kevin, this has been a blast. We could do this for hours.
Might bore other people. Sorry.
I think this is an incredibly prescriptive and useful episode for anyone out there leading or wanting to lead or curious about leading. Is there anything you wanted to talk about today that we haven't covered?
I miss being immersed in the endurance, like sports, running, triathlon industry. If you need any help, let me know, because I want to be part of it still. I'm not leaving Tosi, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. I just miss it. I just miss it. But I got a piece of it. Just being here in Boulder with you, truly, like it means a ton, and I miss it a ton. So that really wasn't anything prescriptive. It was just like, man, I miss this. I love this industry.
We got to get you back.
Yeah.
We got to get you back with people and doing cool stuff. And have you considered doing consulting for organizational health?
No.
I think you'd be so good at that.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
It would be really fun to watch in action. Kevin, this has been a blast. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Been awesome.
Sweet.
Cheers.